Welcome, attendees. I am Anna Brown from Katie Budget Books. I'm our events coordinator. I've been with the store for a little over 10 years. We are so grateful to have the opportunity to have panels like this during this time. And while we miss our in-person events, I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. We have actually been able to have some events like this that we may not be able to have under ordinary circumstances, because getting all these authors together in one place when they have to travel is a lot more difficult than doing Zoom. So I am so excited about our Fierce and Feminist panel tonight. If you are new to Zoom webinar, that is the platform we're using, so you guys can see and hear us, but we can't see and hear you. And that is just so that you guys are always able to see the authors when they are speaking. So there is a Q&A function within webinar. So along the bottom of your screen, or wherever your buttons are, if you're using a mobile device, there's going to be a Q&A box. If you have any questions at any point, you can type them in at any time. We're going to do the audience Q&A at the end, but you can type in the question whenever it occurs to you. And so that is how you ask questions. If you can't figure out the Q&A, I will also be monitoring the chat box. So feel free to just put something in the chat and we'll make sure it gets moved over to the Q&A box. So we are so grateful for you guys coming. I am so excited about this event. I read all 4 of these books. Well, all 3 in the Covet series, but all 4 of the books here. And have loved all of them. So I'm so excited for you guys to hear about them from the authors. So I am actually not moderating tonight. We are so thrilled to have Aurora Dominguez moderating. She is Frolic's YA expert. So we are super excited to have her, and I'm just going to turn it over to her and let her handle it from here.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much. Hi guys, welcome. I am so excited to be here tonight presenting these amazing authors. So I'm going to first introduce their books and their names, and then we're going to start with some wonderful questions. And towards the end, you guys have the chance to ask questions. I will moderate them and make sure as many questions that you have get answered, because I know you guys are excited to be here and you want to make sure you ask those questions. So first off, we have Tracy Wolff with Covet. Welcome, Tracy. Next, we have Catherine Blair with Unchosen. Hi, Catherine. Welcome. So happy to have you here. And then we have Namina Forna with The Gilded Ones. Amazing book. And we have Alexandra Monier with Black Canary. All amazing books, guys. You need to pick them up. They look beautiful together. And I'm so excited that we're all here celebrating these novels. So first things first, I know I gave like a quick introduction, but I wanted you guys to kind of speak about your current book and what can readers expect from the read. So I'm gonna kind of call on you guys and you can start. So I'm gonna start with Tracy, then we'll go to Catherine, then Namina, and then Alexandra. So Tracy, you go first.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy Wolff. I'm the author of the Crave series, and I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you so much for coming to hear us talk about fierce and feminist reads. The Crave series is the story of Grace, a young girl who is orphaned and ends up having to move to Alaska to go to a boarding school run by her uncle. Once she gets there, she realizes that something isn't quite right, and despite the fact, besides living in a Gothic castle, and it doesn't take very long for her to figure out that the really hot guy next to her is a vampire, and it kind of goes on from there, and we get to see dragons and witches and werewolves and vampires, and we get to explore a whole big world that I'm having a lot of fun playing in.
And it's a great world. It's very
thank you.
Exciting, and the books just keep getting better and better. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Up next, Catherine.
Well, Unchosen also has some monsters, but it's very post-apocalyptic. There is a curse called the Crimson that turns people into, I'd say, zombies, because I'm, my homage to The Walking Dead. But it's a virus passed through eye contact, and the main character, Charlotte, is the sister of the one who's the chosen one, who's supposed to go fix all of it. And so she doesn't feel like she has a place in the world, and she's not very special. But then her sister, she might end up taking her sister's place to save her sister and kind of like pretend to be the third one for a hot minute, and it turns into a whole book. So You can expect some scary zombies and some, my editor called him a swoon-worthy sea captain. So if that is your jam, I have some swoon-worthy sea captains, and yeah, lots of swashbuckling and stuff. So yeah.
Definitely a great mix of zombies and swooning. Perfect.
Hey,
That's the
my
way to
jam.
go. That's the way to go. Up next, Namina.
Hi everyone, my name is Namina Forna. My book, The Gilded Ones, is a YA fantasy that's set in an African-inspired world where there's a group of girls who are thought to be demons because they're faster and stronger than regular people, and they bleed gold. And the idea is when you see one of these girls, you figure out how it dies, and then you kill it. Then actual demons come into this world, and the humans realize, hey, we sort of need these girls to fight these demons, and they give the girls a choice, fight or die. My main character, Deka, decides to fight, and in doing so, goes in an adventure that changes not only her life, but the life of everyone around her. The way that I like to pitch this book is that it's basically like if the Dora Milaje from Black Panther were stuck in the world of The Handmaid's Tale and down. That's basically what you can expect. I'm going to be real. It is a very violent book. You can expect sisterhood and chosen family and treasured bonds. It is a hopeful book, but content warning for violence.
But it's just one of those books that you pick up and you just have to read really fast. Like it just goes on by quickly and it's amazing. Congratulations on the novel. And up next, Alexandra.
Yeah, so thanks again for having me. I'm so excited to be here with these amazing authors. And my book, my newest, is called Black Canary, Breaking Silence. And it is the newest book in the DC Icon series. And that's basically where DC and Random House chose 5 different authors, and I'm sure more will be coming, to write the first kind of YA origin story for a different superhero. So Leah Bardugo wrote Wonder Woman, Marie Lu, Batman, Sarah J. Maas, Catwoman, Matt de la Pena, Superman, and then somehow by some miracle, I get to write Black Canary. And my story takes place in a near future version, dystopian version of Gotham City. And it's a Gotham City where women have had their rights severely taken away from them, including what is hardest for my protagonist, 17-year-old Dinah Lance, which is that she is physically unable to sing. Girls in Gotham City they've essentially had their voices taken from them by a very patriarchal, autocratic, dark regime called the Court of Owls, which are basically, just imagine like your most sinister, privileged, ultimate patriarchal privilege group that's ruling the world and taking so much away from women. And my main character, Dinah Lance, discovers that she might be the exception to the curse, basically. And it involves a lot of action. There's also a romance with Oliver Queen, who you might know as the Green Arrow. I had the time of my life writing this. It was really like getting to write my dream DC movie as a book with a lot of feminist themes in it. And it's sort of been pitched as The Handmaid's Tale meets the DC universe.
Yes, and as a comic book nerd, because I love all these characters, it was just great to see Black Canary come to life. So I think you did a great job. Thank you so much for that. It's amazing.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start with a couple of questions for all of you before we go down to audience Q&A towards the end of tonight. So first things first, we're going to start with Tracy. And you guys have amazing characters in your novels. And I know it's possibly really hard to choose which one you most relate to. But do you have a character that you most relate to in this novel, in this series, Tracy, and why?
Oh, I actually tell the novel through the point of view of Grace, a young girl who is completely a fish out of water in this new world that she's fallen into. And I think I really do relate to her. A lot of people who know me say that Grace is probably the character most like me, not just in the books, but in any novel that I've ever written. So I do relate to that. but one of the things that I think I really relate to when it comes to Grace is the fact that she's entered into this new world and she feels powerless. You know, the rug has been yanked out from under her. And of course, I did that deliberately. And she is now living in a world that she didn't even know existed. And she is, in her opinion, just, you know, a mere mortal among all of these supernatural, paranormal beings. And she's never felt more powerless in her life. And I think that's important, because I think that for so many of us, it's when we feel the most powerless that we find a way to claim our power. I know for me, when I was going through a number of really difficult things a few years ago when my life kind of fell apart, I felt powerless for so many different reasons. And it wasn't until I was, you know, really down and out that I really understood what it meant to claim my power and to take control of it and all that. And I wanted that for Grace, because I think it's so easy for us to forget that we do have power, and we don't need to get it from somewhere else. We don't need to get it from something else or someone else, that power is inside of us. And for Grace, it's definitely there, both because it turns out that she is some kind of paranormal being and she didn't realize that. But also just because of her strength of character and her desire to do what's right, even in the face of all adversity.
Beautiful. And I think seeking that power is so important deep within us, 100%. Yeah. How about you, Catherine? Is there a character that you mostly related to or found yourself kind of understanding the most in your book? Oh, Catherine, you're muted. Sorry. Oh, perfect. There we go.
Oh my gosh. You'd think after a year I would know to unmute myself. I
do that all the time. Teacher
with
problem.
Kids running around, I never trust. I'm always ready to hear like, Mom, I pooped or something. I'm just like, no, let's just mute that, sorry, books. Yes, actually, I think my sisters are looking through it, and it's like, I write about the middle child, but I'm the oldest. I'm the bossy older sister. So in writing the older sister Harlow, who's really harsh with her middle sisters, I think I sympathized with her a lot, even though she's kind of mean, because I have been and I am the older sister that's like,
yeah. Did it freeze over there? I think it.
Did I freeze?
Let me see. No, you guys are good. I think Catherine froze there for a moment. Catherine?
She said she was having a bad storm. So
yes, she was. 100%.
So my internet connection.
No worries. No worries. We understand. I know she was having a storm over there, so it's probably frozen right now. So we'll go back to her. So Namina, how about you?
So this might be a cheat, but I actually identify with two characters. The first is my main character, Deka, because Deka grows up in a supremely patriarchal society, and where she is told that do this. And if you're like this, then you're a demon, and all of these things. And there's all of these rules. And when she discovers demon, she doesn't immediately change and become, oh, I'm now kick-ass. I have all this strength. I have all this power. I'm going to rock. No, it takes her a while to sort of question what happens, because she still really, really, truly believes in everything that she's taught. And I really sort of relate to this, because like I grew up in Sierra Leone, West Africa, super patriarchal, but also I grew up in Georgia, another patriarchy. And like I had all these questions growing up about what it meant to be a woman, but it took me a long time to sort of voice these things to myself. Because whenever I asked myself questions, I'd be like, oh, no, you can't ask that. You're the one who's wrong. You're the one who's at fault. So then I'd sublimate the questions and sort of let it. And it took me a while. And so that's why I relate to Deka in that, like, she doesn't like come out like, oh my gosh, I'm out here smashing the patriarchy. No, it is a process for her to like sort of figure it out. The other character that I relate to is one of Deka's friends. Her name is Belcalis, and Belcalis has this tragic past. But she has like, she's not pushing down her anger. The anger is there, it's in your face, it's aggressive, and it's ready to go. And I think the reason why I relate to her, growing up as a woman in this world, like I've had a lot of anger, but I've never been able to sort of express that, because if you express that, number one, like girls aren't supposed to be angry. Number two, as a Black woman, if I'm angry, then I'm the angry Black woman. But for me, Belcalis sort of encapsulates this rage that I felt a lot. Like when I look at things and I'm like, that's so unfair. That's not cool. Like, that's unfair. She's the one who's like out there being like, that's not fair. And that's uncool. And like, that's why I relate to her like so hard and so much, in that I guess she's like sort of what I want to become, in that like I want to be able to say, oh, like instead of like doing this process where I think something and I tap it down, I want to be able to say, no, that's not cool, like straight up. So that's why I relate.
Beautiful. And Catherine, you were talking and you're back. Yes. So can you hear us? And yeah, you can unmute yourself and
there
talk.
is a scary thunderstorm. It's a perfect YA thunderstorm outside.
Oh my God.
Like,
no,
you know,
know?
like my power will go out and there'll be somebody here like telling me I belong somewhere else. It's, you know, it's exactly what I want. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Of course, yeah, California never has thunderstorms until I'm talking, you know. Sorry, what was I saying? Something important.
They were talking about the character you relate to the most and all of that fun stuff.
Yes. Yeah, so I wrote the older sister, and I feel the older sister, but also Charlotte is very, I mean, the book's called Unchosen. She feels like she's hit and miss, and she doesn't quite get the attention, or she doesn't quite feel like she fits in. And I think everybody has felt that to an extent. So I just kind of really leaned into that, because I didn't finish middle school. I had to withdraw because my anxiety disorder got so bad that I couldn't function in a classroom setting. So I was always wondering what it would be like to be somebody that like was on and cool and in and didn't have to deal with all this extra stuff. So she also has some trauma in her past that causes panic attacks. And I just kind of leaned into that because I get that. So yeah, I think, but it's funny because I feel like my middle sister's like, you know what it's like to be the middle sister? And it's like, I don't.
Yes, this will be back.
The one
she has the scary YA storm over there.
Great.
But that was really amazing. So we'll go to Alexandra. Alexandra, how about you?
Yeah, so my main character, the main character of Dinah Lance, who ends up becoming the Black Canary, very personal to me. It's one of those interesting projects where it's technically, you know, work for hire, because DC, this is their world that I get to play in. I was sort of given the keys to, but it feels as personal, if not more personal, than my own kind of original worlds that I create. And the reason for that is I was inspired to write this story because of my family background in Iran. And essentially in Iran, before the revolution of 1979, women had, you know, pretty much all the same rights that we have here in the States. And my grandmother, in fact, I think you can see her, well, the light you can't really see, but that's her in the frame picture. My grandmother was Monir Vakili. She was Iran's foremost opera singer, and she was just this incredible example of what we call girl power, because not only was she the star on the stage and on TV, but she also founded the first co-ed boarding school for kids, both girls as well as, you know, the privileged boys, to be able to go to school and learn how to sing like her. And she even made it free so that you didn't have to come from like one of the fancy families to be able to get this kind of arts training. But then when the revolution happened in 1979 and the regime changed, suddenly, just overnight, everything changed for women, to the point where Iran is kind of what we know it as today, where women, to this day in 2021, they can still be jailed for singing publicly. Like, I kid you not, that's real. So needless to say, my grandmother's career was taken from her. The opera company she founded was shuttered. The school was closed. My family had to escape and come to this country. And so even though I was born in the United States years after all of this, and I never got to meet my grandmother because she died in a car accident after her escape. So very tragic. I grew up with this story just surrounding my past and my family background, and just this idea of women having their voices taken from them. And because of what happened in Iran, and that they started out where women had so many freedoms and so many powers, and then it's like some, you know, people got scared of that, you know, got scared of women using the full extent of their voices and decided to take that from them. I just am very sensitive to anything I see happening in our country that starts to look like it could possibly be heading in that direction. And so that's why I wrote this book, and I connect so much to this main character. It feels really, really personal to me, and I feel like I'm sort of, you know, finishing what my grandmother started in a smaller way.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love how relatable, like I love all these background stories, and it's so important to have that relationship with your characters.
Yeah.
100%. So the panel is titled Fierce and Feminist, and your books represent these type of characters. There's always this fierceness to them. There's a lot going on that's so powerful in the books. So we'll start with Tracy. So why do you feel, and I think this is very important, especially as a high school teacher, seeing these young adults every day in my classroom, why do you feel it's so important to have these type of characters that are so fierce and so powerful and are just a representative of just being themselves?
Well, I think that it's important to have characters that are fierce and feminist.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's also important to show characters that are off their game, you know, because I think so many young girls are uncertain, and so many young girls are still figuring out who they are and where they fit in the world and all of those things. And so I think that you know, watching that feminism grow from these characters is particularly amazing and important and interesting to see. With Grace, obviously, I talked a little bit about the powerlessness and being able to claim the power that is inside you, and how important I feel that is. But I think that it's even more than that. I think that these characters give are incredible role models for young girls as they figure things out themselves. For example, in the Crave series, one of the big things, you know, you hear from a lot of the fans are you Team Jackson or are you Team Hudson, and you know, where do you fall in this and that, and when I get that question, I always say I'm Team Grace, actually, because for me, it's not about which boy is the cutest or the hottest or, you know, the darkest or whatever. It's about which boy helps Grace reach her full potential. You know what I mean? Which boy lets her be her and takes a seat and lets her figure things out. Because it's not always necessarily the first boy that you love is the boy that you end up with, right? And so for me, and for all of our books, I think we are providing different kinds of roadmaps to femininity. My fierce may be different than Alexandra's or different than Namina's or different than Katie's, right? But different roadmaps to help young girls navigate who they want to be and how to choose themselves first and how to stand up for themselves in a world that as so many of us are talking about, wants to silence them.
Oh my God, amazing. How about you, Catherine? Yeah, you can unmute yourself. Perfect.
Is the storm gonna let me talk? We'll find out. Stay tuned. Okay. I think it's so.
I think the storm is not letting her talk right now. No. We'll go back to her. So Namina, we'll go back to you and then we'll try Catherine again.
Catherine, this storm is not letting you have your shine.
No.
It's trying to silence her.
Yes. The storm is the patriarchy.
I know, right? So I think for me, when I grew up, both in Sierra Leone and in Georgia, I grew up knowing that I was a second-class citizen. I grew up knowing that I was not as valued as the boys around me and the men around me. And people will, of course, say, oh, you know, that's not true, da, 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 da. But in practice, like how I was treated and how all the other girls around me were treated. Well, people can say all the things that they want, but you see it in practice in how you're treated. You know, it's reinforced in the house of you do these chores and then, oh, he'll mow the lawn and that's all he does for the week and that's fine. Or, you know, or like when you become a wife and a mother, these are all the expectations that you must do this, you must do that, you must do this. And I grew up being like, that seems unfair, but also like, because there were all these messages telling me that this is what is appropriate, I thought I was wrong. And so I sort of stifled all of my questions and all of my sort of ideas of fairness. And that's why I think it's so important. I wish I had a book like The Gilded Ones when I was growing up. I wish I had books like you guys' when I was growing up, because at least I would have then seen different representations of what is appropriate for a woman and for femininity, you know? Because when you grow up in spaces when you're only taught that it's one way, it's really important for you to see representations of what is different, you know? And I think the other thing is like, when we talk about strong female characters, like, I think oftentimes like there's this idea that this person is physically strong and emotionally strong and And for me personally, I don't think that that's like, I think that's one type of strength, but I don't think that that's all the strength. And I also don't think that, you know, if you're hyper, like, I'm going to fight the patriarchy, that's like the only way to go. There are multiple different paths, which I examine in the book. But I think it's important that we're presented with all these different paths. So then we can choose and be like, oh, this is what not even my feminism, but what I want to be like. Like, you can have a choice in like the type of woman or person you want to become.
Beautiful. And it's so true, because there's so many representations of what being a woman is and what being fierce is. And I feel like all these books have relatable moments and characters that a lot of people can really look up to. And that's so important. So Catherine, I'm going to try with you again. I totally understand. I'm a teacher and I use Google Hangout with my classes. And there have been times me, the teacher, gets kicked out of the meet.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Like, I can hear everyone, you know, I can hear everyone talking. So it's like, that's okay. You know, it's like,
Yeah. And you can also put it in the chat and I can kind of like mention if anything. Yeah. Yeah. It's the storm is not letting her talk.
I was just going off what Namini said. No?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay, good. What Namina said about leaving like something for the girls now. I feel like when I was in high school and college, those books helped me want to be like them. So I felt stronger because I knew who they were. So like Kara Thrace from Battlestar Galactica is one of my absolute favorite people in the world. And I remember being scared on a flight and being like, okay, but Kara wouldn't be scared. So I'm going to try and not be scared right now. So I would just kind of absorbed the like what I would get from those stories, and I feel like it's my responsibility now to leave more for the girls that are coming. So I love the idea that fierce isn't the same thing across the board, because it's not. And I wanted to write a character who has like a really bad anxiety disorder and panic attacks, and she's not like yeah, like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I got this, no big deal. She's scared a lot, and I needed to see brave, scared girls a lot when I was growing up. So I liked writing that, and I hope that helps, you know, like another girl in 6th grade who can't cope and has to go do independent study at home. So like that's what I would want to leave behind, is that you can be fierce in all sorts of different ways.
Beautiful. That's perfect. And Alexandra, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Namina said about writing, you know, the kind of books that you wish that you had. And I feel like with these characters, with these female characters, it is really challenging a lot of the sort of societal messages that we get just constantly bombarded with. And so that's really what it means to me, is writing the characters that that you want to see in the world, that you wish you would have seen when you were growing up. And also, I too agree about the idea of fierce being different for everyone, and that there are different ways of expressing that. I'm like the least athletic person ever. So, you know, when I was writing some battle scenes and stuff, I'm like, oh God, I would so be like useless in there, but I would be effective in other places, like maybe in strategy or, you know, things like that. And so I think it is fun and important to see characters like stumbling on their way to fierceness, and also having like very relatable human emotions. Like I made sure to write scenes in this book where even though Dinah is this amazing badass, she also has moments where she's, you know, really doubting herself or feeling overwhelmed by these feelings she's having for Oliver Queen, and, you know, kind of mood swings and just like a lot of things that we go through when we're teenagers. So I wanted to show that you can be human and relatable, and like I wanted them to see themselves in a superhero and think like, that can be me, I can make that difference, and I don't have to be some like overly evolved 17-year-old.
Beautiful. And when it comes to character development, I feel like characters can sometimes, as a writer, surprise you. Like you don't know what's going to happen next. Like you might be writing and you're like, where are they going now? So no spoilers, of course, but I'm going to ask each of you, is there a character in your book that completely just caught you off guard? Like they just surprised you with what they did in a specific moment? Tracy.
Yes, actually, and it's a character in Covet, and his name is Remy. And I had in my head, like all along, you know, I knew he was coming in Covet, and I knew what role I needed him to play, and I knew what I wanted to do with him, you know, through the series, through the book, through the series. And you know, I get finally, you know, 500 pages in or something, I get to introduce Remy to everybody, and he opens his mouth, and he is nothing like what I thought he was going to be. Not personality, I mean, not archetype, I mean, nothing like what I expected from him. And in fact, I had my editor had been dying to meet him, and so I sent her pages, and she was all, okay, he's hot, but he is nothing like what you told me to expect. And I was like, yeah, because I don't write flirts, I don't write charmers, I never have. I write lost souls, I write bad boys, and I write warriors, and that's what I write. I don't write any other. And he opened his mouth, and he was like the most charming guy I've ever written in 66 novels, you know. And I was like, well, this is not what I was expecting for this situation, but okay, sure. So he was a lot of fun because he was constantly keeping me on my toes and constantly surprising me every time he opened his mouth for the portion of the book that he was in.
Nice. That's awesome. And Catherine, how about you? Was there a character that you were like, what's going on here?
Well, every time I write something that's like remotely funny, I'm like, oh, like that came from me. My husband will even say, like, I'll go downstairs and I'll say something, and he's like, you've been writing. And I was like, you know, I'll be like, well, how do you know? Well, obviously, because I'm always writing, but he'll be like, because you're acting funny, like you're saying things that are funny. And it's like, I should be insulted, but I'm not. But overall, I think Maddox, the character that's kind of, I don't want to say human trafficker, but human trafficker. She's kind of tough to write just because she's, you know, a human trafficker, and I did not expect how her story would go. And I didn't know how to like kind of handle that, because I knew that was kind of a, you know, how do you deal with a villain who does something so heinous that you don't really know how to deal with them. So I was surprised at how that story hung itself out. So yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. Namina, how about you?
Let's see. I think the character that most surprised me was White Hands, who is like basically the mysterious sort of mentor figure in the book. Because when I wrote her, I had a vague idea of what her backstory was, but I didn't realize how detailed it was. And also I didn't realize how like badass this woman was. Like at every turn, she kept surprising me, because like, you know how sometimes you write like, and you don't know how a scene will turn out, you know, like, oh, this is the general contour of the scene, but you don't know what's going to happen. And with every single scene with her, like I never knew what was going to happen. I was constantly surprised, and she was always sort of leveling up. And I was like, well, okay. I did not expect you, but I am really enjoying what you're doing. Let's just keep it going. Yeah, she is delightful in a very, very frightening way.
Nice. I love that. Alexandra, how about you?
I think what surprised me was just how much fun I had writing a lot of the supporting characters around Dinah. I had just kind of this dream come true task of getting to pull some of my favorite characters from the sort of Gotham City Batman universe. And so two in particular that I had that play an important role in the story and that I just loved writing so much were Barbara Gordon, the Oracle, and Sandra Wusan, Lady Shiva. And they play really important kind of mentorship roles for my main character. And I think that was like the most illuminating thing for me, and almost kind of got me excited in a way to branch out and write more grown-up fiction as well, because I just had so much fun writing these characters that, you know, come to the table with, you know, with all the experiences that they've lived through these years and just the complicated past they have and everything. So that was an unexpected joy for me.
Nice. And I'm going to ask possibly one or two more questions because I'm seeing some audience Q&A and I want to make sure we get to it. So let's see. Do you have any writing rituals that help you get inspired? I know a lot of us like might write in silence, or maybe you need a little music, or maybe you just need to have a cup of coffee in the morning, that sort of thing. Tracy, how about you? Do you have any rituals that you follow?
I'm actually one of those writers who, if the writing is going well, I can write through. I have three sons, and I could write through them like having a fight behind me and not even acknowledge that they exist, and not even know that they exist, you know. And if the writing is going bad, I'm like, why do you need to breathe that loud? Like, why are you breathing next to me? Like, how could you do this to me? And so in general, I don't need silence. I don't need music. I don't need a cup of coffee. I don't need a candle. But several years ago, I'd mentioned that, you know, things had gotten really bad in my life, and writing had become really difficult for me for the first time in my life, really. And it was, you know, Dorothy Parker always says that writing is the act of applying the ass to the seat, right? And I would come up with every reason not to put my butt in the chair. And a friend of mine, you know, and when I did, even then, I was surfing social media. I was doing all these things that I shouldn't do. And a friend of mine says, you know, you need something that will trigger your brain into knowing that it's serious writing time. Like, this is it. This is what you do. You only do it right before you sit down to write, and that's it. And it could be a candle. It could be anything else. Well, for me, it's a dance, which I will not demonstrate, but I have a writing dance, and I do my little writing dance every day before I sit down, or 3 times a day, depending on if, you know, my writing day is interrupted. Every time before I sit down to do serious words, I do my writing dance, and it tells my brain it's time to write. So that's my ritual. And then the only other thing I have, and this is usually when I'm really tired and I'm closing in on deadline and I still have, you know, 200 pages to write or something. And it's kind of a trigger to my kids more than even to me. My hair goes up in this little Pebbles Flintstone ponytail at the very top of my head that I never let anybody outside of the house see, you know, because it's ridiculous. And it's one of those visual cues where, like, one of my kids will come, mom's got the ponytail, I have to go, and just like back away quietly. So those are my only two writing rituals.
I love it. Catherine, how about you?
I am one of the people that need like a Spotify playlist ready to go, and my Pinterest board up. It's like the reason I need 3 monitors. I don't need 3 monitors, but like I made sure I had 3 just so I could have, you know. And if I'm on deadline and it's kind of getting that way, I'm a napper. I love to take my naps, and it's really unhelpful when you're on deadline and you get sleepy. So I usually go to, I guess, Starbucks or something where I spend $5 on a cup of coffee, and it's like, don't waste this cup of coffee. It is expensive. And my husband would say, like, I can make better coffee. It's like, that's not the point. The point is I have to spend money on it so that I can stare at it and say, don't waste it. Finish it and finish the words you're supposed to finish. So those are my 2 kind of ways I sort of kind of keep
No,
myself
that's
writing.
awesome. Yeah, I love that. How about you, Namina?
So for me, couple of things. First, I'm a super early morning writer. Like if I'm really in the zone, I'm waking up at like 3, 4 a.m. to write. And those are beautiful writing hours for me. And I need absolute silence. So I write in my bed. Like
Nice.
it's very sad. Like I have a writing desk. I don't think I've ever used it. If I'm feeling really fancy, I'd move from my bed to my couch. And that is my writing ritual. I'm trying to do better. Like, if you guys have any tips or whatever, give, because like I can't forever keep writing in my bed. It's not healthy. But I'm working on this ritual. We'll get to another place soon.
66 books in, I still write in my bed too, at least 75% of the time.
That's completely okay. We all have our different ways of just getting inspired. How about you, Alexandra?
Yeah, I feel like some of my best writing has been when I'm like still in my pajamas in bed. So I don't know that you need to change that. But yeah, I like Catherine, I have to have the Spotify playlist, and I'm very particular that I need to listen to the music in my headphones, like not just ambient. And I used to, before the pandemic, I used to love, like, it would kind of be a treat where I would like take myself either to a coffee shop or to somewhere for lunch or something. And similarly, I think just that idea of like, okay, I'm investing in this like working space and buying myself some food or drink or whatever to like motivate me. That was always a really nice kind of way to break up the writing day, get myself out of the house. But obviously, you know, that doesn't happen anymore. I used to also love like finding different places on each book. Like I used to do like a writing retreat on each book where I would take myself to the city that my book might be set in, or something similar to that gives me that inspiring feel. Again, all things I'm looking forward to post pandemic. So right now the main things are just my music that always gets me in the zone. I used to be totally addicted to Diet Coke as of like a week ago. So I'm trying to tamper down on Diet Coke because I never got into coffee. And so Diet Coke was my caffeine fix, but enough people have told me I shouldn't drink so much of it. So I'm trying to, yeah. If you guys have any other caffeine recommendations.
Delicious. I totally understand.
Oh, good. It's the drink of the gods.
Awesome. So we have quite a few audience Q&As, but one last question before I get to a couple of the audience Q&As. So is there anything you guys can share that's up next for you in the book world, Tracy?
Oh, absolutely. I'm actually really excited. I'm releasing a romantic comedy actually March 30th that I wrote with Avery Flynn, and it's called Back in the Burbs, and I'm really excited about it. It was a really quick kind of project that we did together, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And I think it's actually a really important book. It's a women's fiction book, and I just think it's a really important book for women too. I think the character in there and the experiences that she's gone through is important. And then of course, right now I'm writing Court, which is the 4th book in the Crave series.
Exciting. Catherine, how about you?
Yeah, I'm branching out a little bit, and for Penguin, I'm writing a contemporary. I'd say it's a rom-com, but it's about purity culture. I'm a preacher's kid, and I grew up with the True Love Waits situation. So it's called Like Lightning. It's coming out with Putnam. It's slated for next summer, but it might move. But it's about a girl who kind of subverts that, with the preacher's daughter who kind of goes rogue, but while planning a purity ball with her aunt. So it's kind of like it's comedy, but it's
nice.
Comedy for my deep-seated traumas. So it's the best kind. It's been the most personal book I've had to write. I had a really hard time with it because I was just like, my friend's like, oh, can I read it? And I was like, I don't want anybody to read it ever, but I do, but I don't. So
nice. Namina, how about you?
I'm currently working on the screenplay for The Gilded Ones, and also the rewrite for book 2, The Merciless Ones.
Oh, amazing. Alexandra, how about you?
So I'm working on a number of different original things, but my next book that's slated for publication is actually another kind of legacy character that I'm so excited I get to write. I'm writing a Princess Jasmine YA historical for Disney Hyperion. So that'll be fall of 2022. And it's going to be the third book in the Queen's Council series, which is basically Disney is giving their Disney princesses the crown treatment. So each book is going to tackle a Disney princess in their at the end of like what happens after the happily ever after, when suddenly these young women are now ruling a kingdom and all the kind of different political intrigue and betrayals and stuff. So mine is book 3 and it's Princess Jasmine.
Oh, that's exciting. So we have quite a few questions and comments. So I'm going to start with a couple of comments. So we have Stephanie saying that she would wish that Tracy would do her writing dance. And then, and then for Stephanie, she has a real question for all of you. So you guys mentioned a ritual for writing, obviously, but do you guys have any sort of ritual for when you finish your book? Tracy?
I fall down flat on my face and sleep. Does that count as a ritual?
That
because
counts.
usually the last 2 to 3 weeks are almost no sleep. I'm writing 22 hours a day, pretty much, and napping in like 20-minute increments. But yeah, it's always been fall down on my face, check in on my kids, and clean my house. It's not a very exciting ritual, but it is I think a real one. And then we tend to try to have a celebratory dinner when the day after I finish my book, and also the day like a book comes out, because I think it's such an accomplishment. It is something to celebrate.
Nice. How about you, Catherine?
Cleaning your house thing is very real. I feel like you could tell how close you are to a deadline. My husband will come to my office and be like, oh, yikes, like cups everywhere and it's nasty and trash is full. But I actually kind of tend to fall back into a comfort show for at least a couple of days just to turn my brain off. So it's been Fear the Walking Dead for a while. I just kind of like go back and start with the pilot, and I finish a book and just kind of let myself get spookied. But I have to kind of turn my brain off for at least a day or two, but never too long, because then you get bored, It's like, I'm going to take a week off. And it's like 3 days and you're like, 4.
Nice. Namina, how about you?
It's the same with everyone. Basically, you just sort of collapse, sleep for a couple of days, clean your house, because invariably by that time it's a pigsty. And then I have a nice champagne, and I watch a new show. Like I binge on all the shows or movies that I've missed. So I'm just like, don't talk to me. Like it's my recuperating time. And also I'm careful to sort of stay at home, because that's the time that you get sick. Like it's like right after you finish doing a project, like your body's like waiting. So I'm like, oh no, stay home.
How about you, Alexandra?
Very much the same. I get so excited. That's the thing, when I'm pulling those last all-nighters and racing to meet a deadline, I just daydream about like the epic naps I'm gonna take when I've turned it in, and all the shows that I've DVR'd that I haven't been able to watch. I like to have like a few days to a week of, it never ends up being a full week, but I like just kind of blocking out some time where it's just about resting and pampering a little bit, with just getting to enjoy all the stuff that you had to kind of put off while you're in deadline mode.
Nice. That's awesome. And we have a question from Kathleen Stewart. When writing, do you know where you are going to start first, or do you come back at a later time and just kind of go back and write at the beginning? Like, do you know where you're going to start, or do you just kind of go back and forth? Tracy?
I know where I think I'm going to start, and I start there. And this is the thing with every book I've written. And, I think writers talk about always hating their process and wanting somebody else's process. And I don't know if that's true for everybody here, but that was always true for me until I just learned to embrace it. But I learn about my characters and I learn about the book in the first 3 to 5 chapters. And that means that I write and rewrite the first 3 to 5 chapters until I feel like they're right, until I feel like I know who the characters are. And now I know where the book starts. And now I really know where I'm going. I mean, I may have my beats set out, but like, this is what's going to set the mood, set the tone, set everything. And until they're right, I won't give them to my agent. I won't give them to my editor. They will try to pry them from my fingers. And I'm like, I don't care. You can't see them. They're mine. And then once I feel like I've got it, I race through the rest of the book. I'm a very quick writer once I've nailed that. Now that can take a week, it can take a month, it can take 2 months, depending. But once I've got it, then I can do the rest of the book in a few weeks.
Nice. How about you, Catherine? Oh, you're muted.
Muted.
Oh my gosh. How many times do you get? I'm sorry. Good grief. I always dread, like, I think if I stop and I think about it enough, I will be able to skip the part where I have to rewrite the beginning. Because I'll think about the beginning I was going to write, and then I'll realize it was wrong, and I'll fix it before I have to do that. And it never happens. I always have to write a bad beginning and then realize, like, oh, I think maybe once I've had a beginning that I didn't have to rewrite. So I think it's one of those, it's the hardest part, because you know you're going to have to do it over. And it's like, this isn't going to necessarily count towards the end, but it's part of the process. And I think that's probably one of the hardest parts for me. But yeah.
Nice. Namina?
Tell me why Tracy and I like have the exact same process.
Honey, I write fast from 4 to 7 in the morning. I write fast from 4 to 7 in the morning.
We have, it
when
is
you
so
said that.
I've never met anybody else who has the exact same process, but that's my process. Like, literally, I will spend twice as much time on the beginning of the book, like, as I will on the rest of the book. Like, my first 50 pages could take me like 2 months, and then the rest of the book takes me like half a month. Wow. Like, that's how ridiculous it is.
And that's why you get sick. I do too. I always have to, like, I always get sick after, because I'm so run down, because I've written 22 hours a day and I'm just dead, right?
Yeah, and then you feel ashamed because you're like, people are like, what's taking you so long? The first 5 chapters. I haven't done anything else.
I know. Yeah. Everybody's panicking. Your editor's panicking. Your agent's panicking. Yeah.
How about you, Alexandra?
So actually similar to Namina and Tracy, in that I obsess over the first few chapters, to the point where I could probably like recite a lot of my first chapters by heart, because I go over them so much, and then definitely spend less time on the end, because I just get really obsessed. I almost wondered if it's like part of my anxiety, but now that as I'm hearing you talk, I'm like, oh, I guess it is a common writer thing, to where I just obsess and fixate on the opening chapters so much, to where it's like, can become hard to move on. But where I definitely differ from the two of you is, I have tried so hard to be a morning person. My husband always tells me like how my productivity will soar if I can just get up early, and I can't. I'm just a night owl.
Don't listen to people telling you to like listen to your body.
Yes,
that's true. Yeah. That's true.
We all know what times were best, right? I can try writing in the afternoon, and I could spend 5 hours to get what I would get in 2 hours in the morning, right? It is what it is. Your body and your mind knows what it likes to do.
That's how I am in the morning. It's like I'll get up early and set my alarm the times that I've tried, and I'm so sleepy that it's like I write like a good paragraph and that's it. But it always seems like, God, what an accomplished feeling it must be to be the two of you and at noon have like all these pages done. Whereas for me, I'm like just getting started.
Do you notice I'm like slowly falling asleep? That's because like literally it is like 9:54 here. Like it's tapping to my bedtime. So I literally cannot, like, you guys, I can't keep awake. Like I have been like, I'm literally tapping to keep awake. So you like it's not as pleasant on the other side either,
as a teacher, I understand. I wake up like at 5:30 every day to go. Yeah, so I get it. So I think we have time for about one more question. And guys, please, if you haven't ordered your books, the link is right there on the chat for Katie Budget Books. So make sure you get all these amazing books before I ask this final question. So there's a question about book boyfriends. They ask pretty much, is the book boyfriend your boyfriend? So is the book boyfriend in your book your boyfriend, or do you have a book boyfriend? Let's take it that way. Tracy.
No, I think there's parts of every hero that I write, right, that are really desirable qualities to me, you know, what I would want in a partner. But do I think Jackson or Hudson is my book boyfriend? No, I'm going to leave them for my fans. They can be my fans' book boyfriend.
How about you, Catherine?
No, I can't write a YA version of my husband because he's just like the nicest himbo you've ever, not even a himbo, he's just the nicest, sweetest, like supportive guy. And I like those, like, I always say, like, if I was going to marry the guy that I thought I was going to marry when I was 16, I would have married like Captain Kirk, and we would have had a terrible relationship where we just like fought all the time. And I married like the nicest guy who likes to bring me coffee in the morning and supports my dreams and is like just a wonderful human. So I can't write him normally because like he's a wonderful human. And I like to have the guys that are like kind of a jerk and then become a nice person, you know? So like I'm writing a pilot now where I'm like, oh, I'm going to write a man who supports the woman just unconditionally. And I realized like, I'm writing my husband. Yay, for the first time ever. So
Yeah.
he'll get some airtime.
How about you, Navina?
So the book boyfriend is certainly not my boyfriend, but I think he has, and it's not as apparent in book one, but in book two, it's way more apparent that he has these certain qualities that I think are like really desirable and good qualities in what a person, not just a man, what a person should be. So I'll leave him for, as somebody said, I'll leave him for the fans, but like, yeah.
How about you, Alexandra?
I think I definitely write a little bit of my husband into a lot of my love interest characters, just like the little pieces of him. I think because I met my husband when I was 21. So it's kind of like that sort of rare situation where it was like my first love is the person that I end up marrying. So for that reason, I kind of take YA romance even more seriously because I'm like, it does happen, you know? And so I definitely like, there's no character in any of my books that's like, oh yeah, that's my husband, but there's always just little elements of him, like maybe whether it's the way I describe his smile or like, you know, sense of humor or just something that might have happened to the two of us. So yeah, I would say Oliver Queen is definitely not my husband, although he did humor me and dressed up as him for Halloween this year.
Nice, that's cute. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here tonight. Anna, everybody, thank you for letting me moderate. It's such an honor. And remember, guys, get your books at Katie Budget Books. The link is right there on the chat. And thanks for all your support.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, authors and attendees, for showing up. And thank you to all of you ladies on the author panel. It was such a thrill to have you guys all this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Hey
us.
guys.
This was so fun. I loved getting to talk to all of you and hear about your processes. And everything.
Yes, thank you so much for answering all my questions. It was so much fun.
Thank you for humoring me when the storm tried to silence me.
The storm said, we won't let you have a good evening.
Storm.
And I love storms. I'm like, guys, I'm a California pluviophile. We should be getting along. So I'm disappointed in how this went down for him. You know. Okay. Anyway.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Have a good
Feel
one.
better,
Everybody.
Navina.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.